All right, first up for you. Dads now have a brand new tool, and a very, very necessary one, to help them teach their sons how to become men.
Yes, and the book was written by Braxton, Brady, and Lee Burns from Presbyterian Day School in Memphis. And joining us this morning is Mr. Bradley.
Good to see you. Flight Plan openly discusses a number of issues boys face, from dating to sex. And Braxton, you are raising boys yourself, as well as really indirectly raising how many at PDS?
Well, I deal with 225 on a daily basis, but we've got over 600 at PDS and K through 6. So the 6th grade year is really what the book is focused on. We based it upon a year-long class that we teach the boys about giving them.
Is the class called Flight Plan?
It's called Building Boys Making Men, and we wrote the book with the intention of teaching this to our 6th grade boys, because sadly we've had dads that have kind of dropped the ball, and so we've decided to take matters into our own hands. So Lee and I decided to write this book, and so we meet once a month with 75 6th grade boys, give them a vision for manhood and what middle school and high school is going to look like, and how they can make wise choices in the upcoming years.
That's so
and I think that's really huge, because I think sometimes parents, and more so fathers, might not know what they're doing or might not know how to say it. So I think this is the perfect starting block to say, hey, there's going to be some changes as you're growing up. Take a look at this book. And I'm sure parents, and when a child gets a book, you're like, oh, I'm so not going to read that. There's some really good advice inside the book. Can you tell us just a few little tidbits?
Sure, and we wrote the book. I've got a 12-year-old boy, so it was the perfect time for Lee and I to write this, because I wanted to write it as if I was writing it to him.
Yeah.
And so I made it boy-friendly for that.
Because
I kind of let him look at it a little bit and say, is this cool? Is this not cool? Are you interested in it? Because he's not the most.
So he was your editor.
He was.
Most 12-year-old boys are not. So.
Right, and so we look at topics like peer pressure is the big one. It's not like when I was growing up. I mean, with social media and technology, I mean, everything is that just one click away, and they can look and see things that I could not have even imagined seeing.
Right.
And so peer pressure is a huge, huge deal. So that's really, everything kind of revolves around that one thing, and choosing who your friends are is a key component of that.
And one thing that you point out, everything is a click away. Some parents think they can so sanitize and control their child's world. You can't do that once they're 12, because unless you teach them the right parameters, are you going to be there when they're 19?
Right.
So is that where this book tries to instill in the child?
Definitely,
the parameters?
definitely. We want to give them a vision that they can, a framework for life for the remainder of, going through high school, going through college, getting married, even those kinds of things. Because what we found is you're either going to get your view of the world from your parents, or you're going to get it from somewhere else.
Right.
And so dads have really got to step up to the plate and say, this is what manhood's all about, and this is how you need to live it out.
And I find it interesting, there's some parts in the book you were saying, if you've learned about sex life through off of movies and television, you've learned the wrong way about it, and then you just go ahead and tackle the issue, which is huge for that age for a boy.
It is, and parents, I think, have gotten the wrong idea of, oh, that show's that's not that big a deal, or especially music, is they just listen and listen and listen, and they think, oh, they're not really listening to the words. Well, they're hearing about not treating women properly, they're thinking about money, drugs, all these things, and they think it's harmless, and it's really not. These boys can tell you music lyrics, can tell you TV shows, can tell you internet sites right off the bat, and they're getting a definite worldview. Their worldview is getting shaped by that, whether parents think they are or not.
When you say dads have dropped the ball, sometimes we like to talk about social or economically challenged families where the fathers are not present.
Right.
You teach at PDS,
Right.
one of the most affluent schools.
Absolutely.
A lot of dads have dropped the ball in Germantown and East Memphis also for a different reason. Is that what you're seeing?
Definitely. I think they have gotten very successful in a lot of areas, and that's a great thing, but they've dominated areas that at the end of the day probably don't really matter, and they've got a 10, 11, 12-year-old boy sitting at home that really wants time with their dad.
What do you
really
mean by
wants to be taught.
time? What time? Because some dads may say, gosh, I got to be on a plane, 2 weeks out of the month.
And you would be amazed at a 5 or 10 minute conversation that a boy has with their dad, how meaningful that is. And they hang on every single word. If a dad were to go up to his son in the middle of the night, sneak into his bed and say, you know what, I'm proud of you for doing this. I appreciate you helping out your mom when I'm gone. Or, I mean, any of those things, dads, they underestimate the value of just those few words. And it doesn't have to be, it's more quality time than it is quantity. If they can be there and be intentional, and the world around them is totally focused on the son and the father relationship and not, I'm answering my iPhone.
Yeah, turn the BlackBerry off for a minute.
Returning emails, taking phone
calls.
Kids
know that. Every year I ask 6th grade boys, what are 3 things you wish your dad did better? Always number 1 is get off your phone. Always.
Really?
It's
but yet the child's
inevitable.
on their phone too. So I think it kind of works 2 ways.
It does. It does. Well,
but why is the child on the phone?
Right.
Because dad's on the phone, yeah.
Right.
So both of them are like
the
this.
parents are giving them that. And what we found with texting and the internet is kids in 6th, 7th, and 8th grade, they can't have normal face-to-face conversations anymore because they're so concerned with texting.
Yeah.
And I just read something yesterday that says the average teenager sends 100 texts a day.
I saw the same thing. I thought, holy Toledo, their thumbs must be sore.
And they're spending more time in virtual reality than they are in reality. And that's a scary thought.
It's going to impair their ability to relate. TheFlightPlanBook.com is where you can get this book. It's also at Davis Kid.
Yes.
You'll be hearing much more about it. It is truly an instruction manual for parent and son to work together. Thank you so much.
Thanks so much for having me.
So nice to meet you, Braxton.
Appreciate it.
Thanks for the work you do.
Thank you.
All right.